I'm a big advocate of books, just personally. Like, I find that messaging through books is one of the most significant ways to get your message out. I'll start this in a second. And I wanted to lead into the presentation that I'm going to give. I'm just going to data dump a whole lot of information. I'll leave time for questions and leave extra time if you have any specific questions you have about your own projects or your business that you're working on. My background's a TV producer, which I'm going to show you in a second, but the biggest trouble I see with any author or publisher when it comes to marketing their book is that they think the marketing is actually about the book. And rightfully so, because anybody who writes a book puts so much effort into it. And I'm here to tell you today that there's an infinite amount of possibility for you to market your book if you drop the idea that it's about your book. I'll begin. Okay. Was that a good lead-in? Yeah. Did I get your attention? Okay. So, just going to do a little quick teaser just about my company so you can kind of just see the scope of the work that we cover and how it ties into books. And just a little bit of my background as a TV producer.
Producer Jackie Jordan, author of How to Get on TV.
We asked a few experts their thoughts on what makes reality television so great.
There's definitely two sides to the camera, and it's certainly one for business owners and professionals and mompreneurs and entrepreneurs who need to get their message and the word out into the media. I'm a behind-the-scenes person, a TV producer, and a media consultant, and I have published a book called Get on TV. What makes reality TV so special is that we're actually seeing people be people in unusual circumstances. Madonna's a very powerful force in herself. She certainly has had the reputation of being a man-eater, A-Rod, a womanizer. They might actually be a perfect, happy, compatible fit. Hi, I'm Jackie Jordan. How are you?
Hi, Jackie. I'm Donnell.
Okay, this is what I get to work with, huh? Yeah. One of the biggest questions that I get asked as a producer is, well, how do I get on TV? So that's my background, that's my credits, but I will tell you that in all the time that I've put experts, launched television shows, promoted authors on television, it's actually the same techniques that we do. So the TVGuestpert, we represent all types of authors, and also the translation I think that's really important as an author is the sales of the books. And also for business owners, how do we use our book to leverage the success in our business? We also have a company called TV on Camera Training because I feel like it takes so much effort to learn how to get your book or yourself promoted in the media and television that the execution of it becomes equally as important. And if you want to be asked back multiple times, it's always in the execution of the performance for getting on TV. And then, of course, we have TVGuestpert Publishing and Guestpert Publishing, which are our publishing companies. We're always looking for ghostwriters, editors, copy editors. So if this is your skill set, feel free to approach me afterwards. We are a New York Times bestselling publisher. We do a traditional publishing from a finished manuscript onto bookstore bookshelves within 6 to 9 months. But a lot of the authors that we promote at TVGuestpert are indie authors, and the techniques are still the same. Some people think that they're through traditional publishing versus the independent publishing, that there's a difference in there's value for each. There's a good side and a bad side, a negative side for each, whether you go traditional publishing or the indie publishing or the self-publishing. Traditional publishing, one of the most negative sides for me as a TV producer and as an advocate for authors is the fact that from the book idea to bookshelf is a couple of years. And oftentimes, depending in what genre of book that you're marketing in, the content wave, which is the currency that I actually deal with. Everybody thinks it's like TV producing and books, but it's really the content. I traffic content for a living. That's what I traffic, is content. That the media wave has already passed before the author might have a timely opportunity to promote a traditional book. The biggest disadvantage to a self-publisher, an independent book, especially if you're doing going through the Amazon portal, is you essentially get a Amazon web page. So you're 1,000% responsible for driving all traffic to that web portal, and which is great. And it's challenging. You keep more profit on the independent side than you do on the traditional side. From a media point of view, the downside of the self-published medium for authors, for example, like the Today Show, is that the book hasn't been vetted. So a traditional publishing house, the author's book has been vetted, and a national media can promote a book because it's been vetted. And I can answer questions on that if you more specifically. So these are some of the misconceptions I'm already addressing about the publishing or the self-publishing advantages and disadvantages. But in terms of we'll get calls all the time, and these are my worst calls that I get, but I get a call from a very exuberant author, and they're like, my book just came out. And as a promoter of people, I'm like, that call should have come in 9 months ago. So the way we promote our authors at TVGuestpert is that we promote them through, we call them the upcoming author of. We start building out the media platform for the promotion of the book 6 to 9 months before the book actually materializes or hits the shelves. When it happens, it's an event that has already occurred. The big party should have already happened. So and the media is in tune to that. They want, what they're interested in is the next best thing. So we kind of keep it in that next best thing, perpetual motion space, so that when it hits, there's already a momentum of cumulative PR momentum involved to promote the book. So that's just one thing, but if we do receive a call from an exuberant author whose book just came out, we will work with that, and we're going to work with it through some of the tips that I'm going to share with you here. So tying in the misconception with this idea of developing your hook is that the author wants to promote the book. As a television producer, which is my background, I've never booked a book on television. So it's not about the book. Actually about the author and the story. What is the story the author has to tell? Now, usually a story is in the book, and there's multiple stories within the book. Even as a television producer on nationally syndicated shows, when the big houses, Simon Schuster, Random House, HarperCollins, would send a press release to us as TV producers, they would send a press release about the book, and we would just throw them away. For a couple reasons. We don't have time to read the book. And we're not going to put the book on TV, we're going to put the author on TV. So we want to know who the author is. So everything that we do at TVGuestpert is about building the platform of the author. If you work with us outside of a book and you're only working with us as a business owner, say you're an attorney or a therapist, we treat it the same way. The business is the plug. So what we call it is the plug. The book is the plug. The book is the real estate transaction that's going to be plugged on the show for you sharing your story or your expertise. And especially for children's authors, congratulations on your new book. A lot of children's authors, and we've worked with many of them, get marginalized because they're children's authors. But when you're developing a hook, you look at the hot topics that are going on in the collective narrative in the media, and there's so many children-related issues. So as a children's author, I'm here to speak about why reading books is better than having your child on an iPhone or an iPad or a tablet. That would be a news hook for promoting your book. It's not about the specific book exactly, but it's about the content of your book and why you are a recognizable author talking about a subject. And so it's a very fine line, but it's the difference between why some authors get promoted all the time and some authors only get promoted or don't get promoted at all. So that's what it's about, developing your hook. And some of the tricks for developing your hook are current events. So for us as a company, we have Halloween coming up. So our food, our chefs, our cookbook people are doing all Halloween-related food. How to do Halloween without sugar. That's a great news hook for our chefs. For anybody doing children, you can talk about how to deal with little kids when they get scared at Halloween, because it can be a scary time. Then right behind Halloween, we've got Veterans Day. So anybody who's got veteran stories, war stories, coming home stories, that's going to be in November. So that's what that means for developing your current events hooks. Using this strategy to promote your books or your expertise as an author opens up an entire timeline of media opportunities throughout the year to promote your book, if you can see it. Time sensitive, so holidays I hit upon, which was, of course, we've got Halloween. News, studies, statistics. So there were a couple of big new studies that came out. I don't know where everybody's focal point of book content is. And this applies to fiction as well as it does nonfiction. But there was a recent study that came out and said that alcohol and any consumption isn't good for you. So we were able to run with that with anybody that was our medical doctors, anybody that was our therapist, anybody that was an addiction specialist. So all of those experts have that expertise, was able to do that. So anything that comes up as a statistic or a study, and you've got a ding, 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 ding. Now, if you've done a fiction book and you've applied research to it, then you might also have collaborative data that enhances the recent study. So these are all reasons that media, because the media is looking for this anyway. This is how they are looking at their media stories. And then, of course, anything that has to do with celebrities. The celebrities give us so much, especially Southern California, from the East Coast. This is the celebrity thing. I'm living in Los Angeles, but the celebrity thing is just huge. And they give us so many interesting things to talk about that might be relatable. So building a solid platform and building credibility. A couple things people say to me is they're not ready to go out because they don't feel like they have a platform, like they don't have their Twitter or their social media in place. And that's not necessarily true. But building a platform and building a solid platform and building the credibility behind yourself as an author or an expert, or if you're advocating for your authors, is so important because we build upon momentum. So anytime you have one story, somebody's written an article about your book, or somebody has, we use it to leverage. So it's the game of leveraging. So creating credibility and creating a platform is leveraging. I say that we, in the media, producers will book a less qualified expert if the expert is better on camera than a better qualified expert. So that getting back, being good on the camera and delivering your message is really important, especially if you're storytelling regarding a book. This is we have a CIA expert in our roster, so he's quite busy with us. He does primarily breaking news. So his hook, his news topic is most things breaking news. But we did this little tiny quote in Radar Online. This is what I'm saying about leveraging and creating momentum. Radar Online picked up this little quote when celebrity was the hook. Kim Kardashian was held hostage in her hotel in Paris. We got this little quote, and Entertainment Tonight picked him up 6 hours later, brought him in studio to do the story. So I'm very big on leveraging. So small opportunities translate into big opportunities. I have had many people turn down small opportunities because they think they're too busy or they might be beneath them. But we leverage opportunities all the time. So we can say to Entertainment Tonight, oh, he's just quoted this morning in Radar Online. Or they're like, great, can he be here at 6:30 in the evening? So the formula is simple, it's just most people don't know it. It looks way more elusive than it is. This is our fiction author, Darren Campo. He's been with us. He's done probably about 6 or 7 sci-fi books. So his fiction series is kind of like Ender's Game. Not my personal genre, but I enjoy his book because it's got that Ender's Game. As an expert and an author, we promote the heck out of him on all things artificial intelligence and Elon Musk, because it ties back in to his book. So his book is the plug on the show, but all the media that he gets, and he gets a continual amount of media, is because we tie it into his books. He's a fiction author of that deals with artificial intelligence and solar-powered space cars, and it's enough to get him booked. So he's constantly out in the media with his series, and he also does a lot of speaking engagements. He was just quoted, China Television just did this whole piece on him. And that's how we promote his fiction series. So that's how a fiction author would use the contextualization of their book to promote on Hot Topics. So that's what we do with Darren. So knowing what you're getting into when you're asked to do television, there's a couple different types of interview styles when you get that call. There's the sit-down interview, which is the traditional interview, and it's either live or live to tape, which means that they're not going to edit what you say. They may delay it and edit what the host says, but they're not going to delay what you say. So mean what you say what you mean. But this is our New York Times bestselling authors, Rebecca Grotto and Christy Whitman for Taming Your Alpha. This was for their book, Taming Your Alpha Bitch, How to Be Fierce and Feminine and Get What You Want. And so this is a traditional sit-down live interview. And then this is called a field piece or an ENG piece. So Lisa DeFazio is in her kitchen. Reality shows are shot in the field. And it's kind of important to understand and distinguish the differences when you're asked to do a TV appearance, because this one will be wildly edited. This one won't be edited at all. And what you say in both places is fundamental. So knowing the difference of that is important because you want to know what the outcome is.
What does ENG stand for?
It's an old expression, but it means electronic news gathering. Yeah, electronic news gathering. These are also popular. These are the easiest segments to book on television if you want morning show bookings, which are demo segments. And most people don't know that, and they don't know how to translate what they're doing into a demo segment. And then the trickiest one to execute for television is the satellite interview. I'll get back to the first one. So right now we're working with the author of Beyond the Mat, Dr. Julie Rosenberg, really smart woman. She's a medical oncologist and an international executive for Pfizer Pharmaceutical. And here she has this book about living yoga principles outside off the mat. We've been having a very hard time calibrating the extreme of her expertise for bookers and producers and journalists. For me, on a face value, like that to me is like she's a great expert. She's a top female executive in a very masculine, specific industry. and she wrote a book about yoga, practicing yoga principles. So to me, she'd be very curious, but we've been having a hard time calibrating the interest of producers and journalists around her. So what we've decided to do to get her in the morning show space is to give her a demo segment. So right now we're rehearsing her through, and we're doing it based on autobiographies of very popular leadership women. And we're staying out of the political and arena of it, but what made these women fantastic leaders? So that reflects back on her leadership experience as an international executive, and then she's going to bring it forward, her principles as it relates to yoga. So the demo segment is actually going to be a whole entire demo table of other women's autobiographies. And they're all different women, and she's going to be able to show and tell, that's a demo segment, the different qualities that reflect back in her book. And it's great because we're starting the press tour, or the tour for that now, and we're building up to the International Women's Day, which hits March 8th. So we're using that as a news hot topic, and we'll be building out the media for her. And that has been my solution for tying in her professional expertise, which is way over here, with her book author background. So that's what we use a demo segment for. There's lots of opportunities in morning shows for that. And the satellite interview I just bring up because it's a breaking news segment. So if you're a psychiatrist, a police officer, these are the type of interviews you're going to get. You'll get them like 3 hours notice, and then you go sit in a tiny little room, and you look into a camera, and there's no one talking to you, and you have a feedback monitor, and you have to keep your eye focused on the camera and not blink. And that's literally what he's doing. He's like sitting at a little preschool desk looking into a camera, and they drop in all the graphics behind him and in front of him for those interviews, but they're really tricky to do because you can't see the anchor and you can't see the other people that are actually in this show segment. So when we watch, CNN and Fox News Channel, those experts are highly qualified in executing that type of content in a breaking news segment, but you really wouldn't know that. Skype has really become a tool of media and medium that Skype and Zoom, I think Carla mentioned you're doing that one next week. Let me just give you the tips on that. We get also a lot of auditions for hosting jobs and paid host experts for television through Skype. The good lighting is everything. Good proportion with the head placement, good eye contact to the top of the camera of the computer and not looking at the person in the face or looking at yourself. Temptation is honestly really to look at yourself. So you have to look at the camera. Obviously, she's our psychiatrist. She looks so shady here. She looks like so untrustworthy. She's in the dark. She's got a shadow cast over her face. And this is my CIA operative that we just looked at. Where is he looking? So that's what Skype is. And so I use it to show the proportion, and it matters. If you do a Skype interview, we do even a lot of radio Skype interviews. We do a lot of podcast Skype interviews. It matters. These things matter. Make sure you set your shot, you test your camera, and you make sure your connection is working and that your name can be found in the contacts before the show. My staff, we require all my clients to do a Skype rehearsal before any appearance. So that we're not putting any kinks into the actual interview. So I made this comment about mean what you say what you mean. And this is just a kind of a non sequitur story. Because a lot of people are afraid to talk to the media or tell a story to the media. I've already shown you that there's live interviews where they're not going to protect you. And there's also taped interviews where they're going to edit you. What I say to all my clients is that if you're well trained and know your content points, what your core anchor story is for your media interviews, you'll be fine. They can never edit what was not said. They can only edit what was said. So just make sure you mean what you say. The last time I was sick, before I was sick here, the last time I was sick was probably about 2006, and I also had the flu. And I was hired to do a media consultation for this German television production company. and they asked if they could film the interview. Emil's heard this story so many times. I'm so sorry, Emil. And they asked if they could film the interview. So I went to the Galleria in Los Angeles where there is a focus group. And they had me sign a waiver. It was like a 20-page waiver. And I'm reading it. In the back of my Get On TV book, I have a standard television release form. Make sure all my clients are familiar with it. And let me just say, they ask for worldwide rights in perpetuity throughout the universe to use your image, likeness, and words. So I basically say, mean what you say what you mean when you're on the air. So I'm reading this release form, and it's 12, like it's just going on, and it keeps using the word filmed. And in television, we use the word, we say taped. I don't know what it will be now, everything's digital, but we use the language of taped instead of filmed. For movies, they use the word filmed. But I went through the page and I didn't, I was like, well, they're German, maybe they have a different vernacular for it. And then it kept saying, you're not gonna sue us if we're rich, if we make a ton of money off this project, even though we paid you as a consultant, you have no claim. Like, they were super excited. I've been around long enough, and I have heard a lot. So I'm like, it takes a lot to impress me. So I'm thinking they're really optimistic about how this German fashion television pilot's gonna go. So I start walking down the hallway, and they have these big cameras at me. I see a man and a woman hug, and then they split, they run off, and then people come out of the doorways and they shoo me back, and then I walk and do my entrance again. I go into this focus group room, and I look through the two-way mirror, and it's a fashion German television pilot. So I'm looking at the focus group, and it's all these very burly, gray-haired, bearded, plaid shirt men sitting around a conference room table. And I'm like, that is not the group I would have booked for a fashion show. So I'm so confused. It's 10 o'clock in the morning, and this man who's the host of the show, very flamboyant, he's trying to get me to drink champagne. It's 10 o'clock in the morning, and he's kind of making fun of my clothes, and I'm like, I don't even understand what's happening. And in the moment, as I'm talking to him, I said to him, you're starting to scare me. You sound like that guy Borat who chased Pamela Anderson around the country. And then as I went on, I realized that I was waking up in the Truman Show, and that I was, in fact, being punked by Sacha Baron Cohen for his movie Bruno. Did you know that story? Yeah, it's a true story. So then all of a sudden I wake up and realize I'm doing a scene, and that the man and woman I saw in the hallway was his wife, Isla Fisher. And then the producer in me starts counting cameras, and I'm counting the size of the cameras, and I'm just like, oh my God. And then I have this vague production idea that his director, I could see where the control room was in the back of my mind. I was like, are you kidding me? We had already collected a considerable sum of money to do the consultation, and I stood there in the moment with Sacha Baron Cohen, and I thought to myself, do I just bust it and walk out, or do I just stay? And I was like, well, I'm a professional. They hired me for a consultation, just complete the consultation. And for the next 2 hours, Sacha Baron Cohen continued to work me. I saw gay porn, he was trying tricks, dirty jokes, and I have met many, many characters in Hollywood pitching their television shows. So I just stayed professional and clean and clear on what I would say to any other client. And the big thing he was trying to get me to say was that all these celebrities would do a show, and I said, even if you know a lot of celebrities, there's still a whole entire protocol that you have to go through to get a celebrity to participate in any of your media events. So fast forward about 2 years later, as you know, I wasn't in the movie. I was actually cut out of the movie, but my scene is in there. So all the reverse shots are not me, but the focus group was all my focus group. So when the movie screen came up and I saw the focus group, I thought, oh, this is going to be a disaster. And then they cut to the reverse, and it was a man who was a publicist, and it wasn't me. So I was at a restaurant 2 or 3 years later. This man walks up to my table, and he's like, I know you. And he said, I was the editor for that movie, Bruno. He said, you were so professional. He said, we burned so much tape on your professionalism that for 2.5 hours, he said, that was one of the longest takes that we did. He said, and all we wanted you to do was crack. And I didn't crack. So I can say safely to all my clients, if you know what your sound bites are, you can handle this interview. Because I have been put through the test with it myself. So a couple little tiny tricks for your interviews when you don't know what to say and you're not sure what how to get out of it. And our politicians teach us this so well, but they're so not subtle about it that it kind of makes it unfun. So if you're asked something that you don't know, you redirect to what you do know. That's a great question. However, what I can tell you is ... And it's a simple formula such as that. So the currency that I said that we use in our work is, people don't believe this, I'm considered an unscripted television producer. That's the qualification of my television producing credits. Because the scripted shows are like ER, scripted shows are like Grey's Anatomy, scripted shows are like Big Bang Theory. My genre is unscripted, which is like the Kardashians or the news or Fox News Channel, and putting that in the same sentence is already so funny, but to me. But I will tell you, I'm here to say there's nothing I've ever put on television that is not scripted. That's the truth. It's always scripted. So the way the dynamic goes is that we provide speaking points. Now, some shows, producers, radio shows may ask you for a series of questions, but it's should not happen until you've already provided the speaking points. Your speaking points are your answers. Really great shows, good hosts, they'll never ask you for questions because they're going to ask you questions to the answers that you've already given them. So at my company, our clients will write up speaking points on a topic. What was the big thing this week? Oh, this week was the lottery and the bomb. Those two things were some of the big topics going on. So our clients will write up speaking points. We submit them to the producer. The producer likes the speaking points, likes the expertise and the quality of the content coming through the speaking points. Then they'll ask for a pre-interview, which is an over-the-phone audition, to make sure that the person that wrote the speaking points could actually articulate the speaking points before they go any further. But it's all content. So everybody knows their part in the show. It's a tango. The producer is actually the most important person in the whole dynamic, and not the host. The host is just the lead dancer. You are the other dancer. And the producer is choreographing the whole dance. So we work to please the producer. This week I was at Paramount Studios on Thursday for a producer that I used to work with who was down here in San Diego. She was at KUSI, and then she was at Fox 5, and now she's at Dr. Phil's production company in Paramount. So that's how we work. We work with the producers. Our job is just to make the hosts look good. So when you redirect, it's not even a bad thing because the host may not even know where they need to go next. Go ahead.
What is the advantage of using the anchor's name?
I love it. It creates like an intimacy, like even for the viewer. And secondly, it buys you 3 seconds before something else comes out of your mouth. So it gives you a pause. It's a deliberate pause. Requirements for every TV appearance. If you want to be a pro, all my clients are required to have professional broadcast hair and makeup for anything that's going to be videotaped of them. So even if they're doing podcasts, because a podcast now, a video podcast can live on YouTube and can generate more hits than a television viewership. So if it's video and it's going to live, you have to look your best. You're representing your product. You might be representing your life's work. You might be representing 4 or 5 years of your effort. Also, you're not going to find this anywhere else, video monitoring service. We provide video monitoring service. Video monitoring service can be found when you do any appearance. You should, I suggest strongly, to pay a video monitoring service to give you the MOV file, the MOV file, so that you have ownership over the source data, and you can put it on your hard drive. Then you can put it on your website, you can put it on your YouTube. What happens, and the mistake that everybody makes, is that the show will provide them a link of their appearance. Today's Show, for example, they'll give you a copy of the show. They'll give you a link to the Today Show website with their appearance. They will dump that data, 30 to 60 days, they'll dump that data. Your appearance is gone. So you've done all this work to get the appearance so that you can leverage your next appearance, but you've left the value of your appearance on their website. So you pay for a video monitoring service to get an MOV file if it happens to be we do a lot of Sirius XM bookings. If it happens to be an audio file, you get the WAV file. And then you have ownership of the source data of the content. And you can do with it what you want. You can put, like I said, put it on your YouTube link, keep it in your Dropbox, put it on your website. But you lose if you depend on the link, and your website person's not going to tell you this, because what your website person's going to do is they're going to link your website to the link that's on the other website. So for us as producers, and I've just pitched my sister Stephanie as the next guest to talk about relationships between siblings. And they go to the website, the producer's going to do their background check on the person I just pitched. They're going to go to the website, and they're going to click onto her media page and see all these dead links. What that tells the producer also is you're a has-been, because all your links are dead. So the subtlety, so my clients are all required, no matter what, to pay for these two services for any significant show that's going to live. Some shows we don't make them do it for actually every single thing, but anything that's going to live and matter or be worthy of leveraging, they're required to do these two things. And I make my men get the hair and makeup too, because we're in high definition television now, and we don't want to see a lot of shine. We don't want to see wrinkles. Coffee stains show up on teeth. It's just a very invasive television viewing. But if we're going to operate at that level and that standard of professionalism and marketability for our product, that's what we want to do. There was a clip in my opening sequence about me doing a chocolate demo. So I did a I promoted my book, Get on TV, by doing a national media tour about chocolate. And they have nothing to do with each other. And I use this as a big example to show you how wide you can go in topics to promote your book. And when I started here a half hour ago, I said the biggest mistake most authors make in the unsuccess of marketing their book is they think it's only about promoting their book. So for me, I did, nobody was going to book me on a TV about booking a book about getting on TV. So that was not going to happen. So I did a thing about losing weight eating chocolate, which I did. And I talked about the book. I talked about the relevancy of being the image that I wanted to be. So I needed to lose weight, and I did it by eating raw chocolate. And then I could promote my book, Get on TV. And that's how I linked that together, and it worked. So I'm just telling you that's how wide the conversation can go of possibility and opportunity for promoting your book. Okay, just a little formula. I think some of this is in the packet that you have. It's got hooks and pitches, but this is I said we're not scripted, but we're scripted. We do an introduction. You get 2 credits. My 2 credits tonight, I call them the obituary credits, so please forgive me for my sense of humor. Mine are 2-time Emmy-nominated television producer and New York Times best-selling publisher, Jacquie Jordan. That's how they would interview me. And then the opening soundbite is really critical when you are doing your appearances, and this means for anything for radio, because this is the one and only opportunity you're going to have to add another qualification to your expertise. So something for the chocolate one, I would have said, as somebody who loves chocolate a little too much, and as a TV producer and somebody who works with people's brand image, I had to get that back into shape. That would be an opening soundbite, so that I was qualifying my expertise as opposed to just being a chocolate junkie in my experience. And then we do the speaking points. What I can tell you about this issue is, and then you go into your speaking points. And you have every opportunity to re-qualify your experience. So this is how we promote books on television. The way we don't promote books on television is we don't say, well, if you read my book, Get on TV, you would know that to be on TV, you have to have really good speaking points. That you don't want to say. But what you can say, when I was doing the research for my book, Get on TV, what I learned was that most authors thought that marketing the book was about the book. and not about their expertise or their content. So subtlety, but a big difference, and producers pay attention to that. So define your expertise. Make sure you include that in your interviews. I always say it's not in the question, it's always in the answer. So one of my clients he's got a book called, and I like it, it's called Buddha in the Trenches, and he wanted to cancel a radio show booking for this coming Monday because they didn't read the book. And I was like, Steve, how long have you been working with me? I said, they're never going to read the book. That's what we're for. That's what marketing material is for. The other call I get is I want to be on Ellen. First off, if anybody watches Ellen, Ellen has 2 types of stories on her show. What are they? Celebrities and cute children. And unless you're one or the other, it's really hard to get an Ellen booking. But she tapes 3 shows a day, 3 episodes a day, 9 to 12 a week. There's no way she could read everybody's books. It would be impossible. When I was at Paramount this week with the producers from The Doctors, they put together show packets that are this thick of pre-interviews, research, data. The hosts don't read it. Basically what they do is to cover the producer's butt legally. They do all the research. The producer actually has to read all of it or know it, not necessarily read it, but know it. It is impossible for a show host to read the volume of books and material. So that expectation is completely naive and unrealistic. We'd love it if they read our books. We're happy when they read their scripts well. And the other thing that we don't tolerate at my company is we never tolerate a guest, expert, ever complaining, well, the host didn't ask me that. Well, the host didn't ask me that. I'm like, you had a microphone on. You were at the same table with the same conversation. Where were you? Because it is not in the question, it's always in the answer. And if the speaking points were approved by the producer, then it's your opportunity and responsibility, both to yourself and to the show, to deliver the content. So don't blame the interviewer. Looking good on camera, I think we talked a little bit about that. Oh yes, that's Mark Zuckerberg all sweaty. That's what I'm saying. Didn't have hair and makeup, and that clip's everywhere. It's not the same problem. He's got a different set of problems than the rest of us. But looking good on camera is really important because it's first impression. And the reason I put the men in there is we want our men to look good on camera. This is the other conversation that I wanted to address, and we're about ready to answer some questions, is the whole ageism thing. People ask me, is there really ageism? And I'm like, yeah, there's really ageism. I'll give you an example. I can book a 26-year-old fashion expert who's a great shopper over, say, a 57-year-old fashion expert who has spent her entire life in wardrobe, merchandising, and fashion. Easy to do that. I get a call from a casting department at a big studio, and they're like, Jackie, we're casting a show. We're looking for a really great psychologist to do this show with us, to potentially be a host. I'm like, oh my God, we love the opportunity. Thanks for calling us. We can't wait to submit our people to you. Oh, by the way, Jackie, we're looking someone around 25, 26. I said, I think that's a psych student. So, when you have a certain level of expertise, at least in the game that I'm championing, there is that little prejudice. However, I'm here to say that if you know all these skills, none of that matters. So my fashion stylist, this Jennifer Butler, who's white on the top, and she's got a fabulous wardrobe, she did a couple years of red carpet for us, E! Entertainment, TV Guide channel, talking about the Academy Awards and what people were wearing and how they were dressing. So it exists, but what flushes out the age more than anything is the lack of understanding the process and not necessarily the age. This is Frank and Judith. They're like a love guru couple, and they do this thing called Top Gun Love, because he was a Top Gun pilot. And they go around and do media tours and speaking engagements about how to stay lustfully in love at any age. This is Diana Kirshner. I love Diana. She, you might even recognize her. She did Love in 90 Days. I think we did 14 Today Show appearances in the year her book came out. It wasn't Fox and Friends morning show, but it was the show, I think they did a show called something Breakfast a couple of years ago. She did 90 days in a row of their breakfast morning as her love doctor with them. And she is, plentiful over her 60s because she's been married an extraordinarily long time, which is also part of her success story. So it exists, but we've been, very successful because our clients they walk the talk. What to wear, this is also in your packet, so I'm not going to read through it. No white, no black, no busy prints, monochromatic jewel tones for women, and French blue shirts for men are pretty much the go-to outfits. Men don't have to wear ties, but they like them in this, a nice sharp jacket. I crack up on this one just because they look like they match. So all of my clients know to bring at least 2 wardrobes to any shoot. So we always bring 2 wardrobes to any shoot. One, because you could get coffee spilled on it backstage, or you show up on set, they're like that. They're gonna ask you to change. This is the other one. They actually, if you haven't seen this clip, it's on YouTube. I won't show it here, but it's on YouTube. It's very funny. They actually get in a fight over their matching outfits. So we do professional broadcast hair and makeup, so this shouldn't be an issue, as I touched on already. And then the last thing I'll say about sitting is sitting is a technique. So for women, we always sit with our feet crossed, and we sit like this. And then men have to make sure that they don't end up riding a horse by the end of the segment. So those are like my 2 little seat corrections, and nobody should ever sit all the way back in their seat, no matter how comfortable or great the chair is. So you can find us and follow us on our social media. If you're on social media, we're on Instagram, Facebook, and all the usual places. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.